Well, the season may not have ended the way that we wanted it to for the Patriots, but at least we have Red Sox baseball to look forward to. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling, your home for all things Boston sports. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, also currently the host of the Locked On Red Sox podcast, which is a daily Red Sox show on any podcast platform. So if you want to hear Red Sox chatter every day, make sure you subscribe to my other show on any podcast platform. And also just a reminder to subscribe to Boston Balling on any podcast platform to hear the latest going on with all things Boston sports. I'm so excited to bring you another episode today. And while I talk about the Red Sox every day on Locked On Red Sox, I'm also excited to bring you some Red Sox talk once a week here on Boston Balling as well. And this has been an interesting offseason for the Red Sox. They didn't do a whole lot in terms of free agency. The most notable free agent that they brought in was Ranger Suarez, a starting pitcher who is going to slot into the starting pitching rotation right behind Garrett Crochet. So essentially, Garrett Crochet was announced by Alex Cora the other day as the Boston Red Sox opening day starter. That should not be a surprise to anybody. Garrett Crochet had a phenomenal season last year, gave the Red Sox everything that they could have possibly needed and more from him after they made an offseason trade last year to acquire him, and they gave up a pretty hefty haul of prospects for him. But you do that trade every day of the week to get Garrett Crochet in a Red Sox uniform, no doubt about it. Second in Cy Young voting, and that's notable because he was going up against Tarek Skubal, who's the best pitcher in baseball. So it would have been hard to beat him out. But the season that Garrett Crochet had last season cannot be overstated enough. I mean, he was definitely the reason why the Red Sox were winning a lot of games that they were. Whenever he took the mound, you could feel confident in his ability to go out there and get the win, which was a really good feeling because it truly has been a while since the Red Sox have had a true ace. Chris Sale truly was the last one that was a no doubt number one ace caliber starting pitcher that the Red Sox had before they eventually traded him to the Braves. And what I like the most about Garrett Crochet isn't just the fact that he's a true number one starter, but he has that dog in him. This is a guy who's going to work so hard and just wants to be out there competing and winning. And he was invited to play in the World Baseball Classic this year, but he actually turned it down to focus on the season that he wants to have with the Boston Red Sox. So rather than risking injury, he'd rather spend that time during the World Baseball Classic to focus on prepping for the upcoming season with his team. So I applaud him for that. I mean, not every player is going to just say, look, like I'm looking out for the betterment of this upcoming season, because it is a cool experience to play in the WBC. And I encourage players to do that, no doubt. But with Garrett Crochet, his focus is on the upcoming season and making sure that he's his best form for the 2026 Red Sox. So Garrett Crochet, after all the work he's done this offseason, should no doubt be going into this upcoming season as the Red Sox number one starter, 100%, no doubt about it. Then you bring in Ranger Suarez, who pitched for the Phillies last season. And the thing that really stands out about Suarez is his dominant postseason stats. That is the biggest thing that Craig Breslow mentioned that he really liked about Suarez. This guy knows how to turn it on and pitch at his absolute best in the playoffs. And if you want to be a playoff team that makes a deep run, you need to have pitchers out there who are reliable on the biggest stages. And they are going to get that from a guy like Suarez. Now, obviously, his regular season numbers are no slouch either because of the fact that he is able to go out there and perform generally at a pretty high level during the regular season as well. But to me, the postseason stats are what stand out the most. So he is a good enough pitcher to where not only does he have the postseason resume to his name, but he should also be a very strong number two starter behind Garrett Crochet. So that'll be a nice fit for the Red Sox. That'll be a guy that they can really rely on going into this upcoming season. So that 1-2 punch is going to be very exciting. He was the most notable free agent the Red Sox acquired. And then Sonny Gray, who the Red Sox made a trade for with the Cardinals this offseason, right before Thanksgiving. Sonny Gray is on the older side. He's in his 30s, but he's coming off of a very strong 2025 season in which he struck out a lot of guys and gave up weak contact. And that's exactly what the Red Sox look for. And that's exactly what they're hoping to get in a guy like Sonny Gray. Now, the thing to me that I like about Gray is that because he had a really strong season last year, we're hoping that that can carry over into this year. There is a little bit of a gamble with him because of the fact that he is getting older and injuries you have to worry about a little bit maybe coming into play, but the Red Sox are taking a chance by bringing him in and hoping that they are going to get the same version of Sonny Gray that the Cardinals got last year. And if that's the case, they definitely have a good one in him. So a notable trade that they made this offseason was trading for Sonny Gray to add into that starting rotation. Likely will be the number 3 starting pitcher. Now, with that being said, so I've mentioned Garrett Crochet, Ranger Suarez, and Sonny Gray. 1, 2, 3. Now, Brayan Bello is still going to be in the mix. He's a guy that the Red Sox really value, that they see a lot of potential with, a guy that they feel can really succeed at that highest level. And the thing with Bello to me that I really like is that there absolutely is a lot of potential there. He's a ground ball merchant, gives up a lot of weak contact, but he doesn't generate a lot of swings and misses. So that's what I definitely worry about a little bit when it comes to Bello, is his ability to actually get those swings and misses at a high rate. And for most of the season in 2025, he pitched really well. He came back from injury earlier on in the season. And then when he came back from injury, he pitched at a very high level all the way up until September. And then he struggled for the month of September to close out the season. So I'm hoping we don't get that version of him going into 2026, that doesn't carry over. But if we get the version of Brayan Bello that we saw for the majority of the season in 2025, that's going to be the pitcher that I'm really looking forward to seeing. And the thing is, he doesn't have to pitch to a high leverage starter. He doesn't have to pitch to a 1 or 2 because they have their 1-2 punch already with Crochet and Suarez. He doesn't have to be better than a 3 or 4 because he could be the 4 behind Sonny Gray, or he could be ahead of Sonny Gray. But either way, those 2 guys being the 3 and 4 is what's going to make a lot of sense for this Red Sox team. So with having those guys, that is what makes a lot of sense. And that'll be a good combination of 4 pitchers. So the reason I brought up Brayan Bello is because it'll be interesting to see where he slots in relative to Sonny Gray. And then there's Johan Oviedo, who the Red Sox also made a notable trade for this offseason with the Pirates. They brought Oviedo in as a guy they're hoping to be a starter. They gave up a really good prospect in Joe Stinson Garcia, the password for him. The password is his nickname that somebody came up with. He's an outfield prospect, and as good of a prospect as he was, the thing was there wasn't really going to be a spot for him on this Red Sox team because the Red Sox have a really stacked outfield right now with Wilyer Abreu in right field, Cedar Rafaela in center field, and then Jarren Duran and Roman Anthony might likely splitting time between left field and DH, kind of maybe rotating the 2 of them between that spot. So the password, it made sense to trade, but this may have not necessarily been the trade that people thought they would make. They thought that they would keep him around for an even bigger trade, but Oviedo has good raw stuff. He did face an injury last season, but when he came back to pitch, he actually pitched against the Red Sox and was really good. So there's definitely something to work with there, and he's definitely somebody that the Red Sox are hoping is going to be in the rotation. So when you're thinking about the 5 rotation spots, he's somebody that the Red Sox could likely end up putting there to pitch in that rotation behind Crochet, Suarez, Bello, and Gray. So him, Kutter, Crawford, who missed the entirety of the 2025 season and is likely coming back in 2026, he'll be a guy who could be in the mix for a starting spot. Young pitchers, Connolly, Early, and Peyton Tolley, they both made their major league debuts last season. We did see a glimpse of what both of them can do at the major league level, but they're both still developing. So it'll be interesting to see what the Red Sox decide to do with them. Are they going to fight for a starting spot? Are they both going to pitch in the bullpen? Are they going to pitch in AAA to start the season? That all really depends on where they are at the time in their development and how far along they feel they are in their development. So I'm interested in seeing if one of them gets a spot in the rotation or not. So what it comes down to now is how do they round out that starting rotation? Which of those players that I mentioned is going to make up that fifth starting spot? Because it's pretty safe to say that Crochet, Suarez, Gray, and Bello will be the other four. It's just a matter of who fills that last spot. There's also the option of doing a six-man rotation. Now, there are upsides to that in that each pitcher would get an extra day of rest in between starts, which would probably help from a health standpoint. But on the flip side of that, if you think about Garrett Crochet and how many wins he can get the Red Sox, you're having him lose every fifth day of pitching and having him pitch every sixth day instead. So because he's pitching less frequently, that's less of an opportunity for them to win those games with him on the mound. So that's the downside to doing a six-man rotation. But if the Red Sox genuinely feel like they have more than one pitcher who's performing at a high level coming out of spring training, then it is something that they could consider, because Kutter Crawford was a nice piece in the rotation in 2024 prior to him getting hurt. You don't know how a guy is going to be able to bounce back from injury and perform. You don't really know if they're going to be the same pitcher that they were prior, but you kind of just hope that they are. And that's where the Red Sox are with him, is hoping that he ends up being the same pitcher, or at least on the same level of productivity that he may have been on prior to the 2025 season. And the biggest thing with Kutter Crawford is, while he generated a lot of strikeouts, he also gave up a lot of home runs, to the point where he led the league in home runs allowed. So that's something that he's going to need to figure out, is try to understand how to limit the home runs. What adjustments can he make mechanically to not give up the long ball as much? So that's something I'm looking at with Kutter Crawford in particular going into this upcoming season. So with all of that being said, now you look at where this Red Sox team is from a pitching standpoint and you say, okay, they're in a pretty good spot going into 2026. Now, the offense, on the other hand, is in a different spot, because they lost out on Rafael Devers because they traded him to the San Francisco Giants in the season, like during the 2025 season in June. So lost out isn't exactly the right word, because they chose to do it, but are now losing out on the productivity that he provided in that lineup in terms of a power bat, because the Red Sox don't really have a true power bat in the lineup right now. They don't particularly have anybody who's like a super deep threat, and that's what's an issue to me. They brought in Alex Bregman last year, and I truly feel like we're under the assumption that Alex Bregman was going to come back this year. I don't think that the Red Sox anticipated that Alex Bregman was going to leave and go elsewhere. But after the 2025 season ended, then Alex Bregman, it came time for him to sign a contract, because when he first got his offer with the Red Sox prior to last season, it was a 3-year deal, but there were opt-outs after each season. So that means that if he opts out in between, he becomes a free agent. So he chose to opt out after the first year of that deal, not necessarily because he didn't like Boston. He kept saying over and over again that he did like Boston. He liked the young talent that they had, and he liked the future of what things could look like for the Boston Red Sox. So he went there, worked with the young players who all really liked and respected and appreciated him. So that was where he ended up being for the year, and he liked it and enjoyed it. But then if you're at his age, you're in your 30s and you're trying to get your maybe last big contract, it makes sense that he would want to make more. So he opted out with the Red Sox as an option, because he was working through negotiations with the Red Sox and maybe restructuring the contract so that he would feel more comfortable with it. It would be for more years, because this was a 3-year deal with opt-outs after each year. So it was a very team-friendly deal on the Red Sox part. So he was working with the Red Sox and other teams to try to work out a contract for him that would work in his favor for years to come, because he wanted a multi-year deal. So that would be why he opted out originally. The Red Sox offered him 5 years. However, so did the Cubs. The one thing that the Red Sox didn't do that the Cubs did was guarantee Alex Bregman a full no-trade clause. So what that means is that the team that he's on is not allowed to trade him unless he personally approves and says, yeah, I'm fine with being traded to that team. So essentially, the Red Sox said, we are not willing to guarantee that, because if they wanted to trade him a couple years into the contract, they wanted to have that flexibility to do so. Whereas he was saying, well, I have a family. I have 2 young kids. I don't want to have to keep moving them around wherever I go next for baseball. I want to be able to make that a more permanent home for them. So that was why he didn't accept the Red Sox offer, because the Cubs said, yeah, we can guarantee that you'll be a Cub for the next 5 seasons. And he would have to override the no trade clause, he personally, if they were to trade him, so he can just say no at that point if he wants to stay, because he wants to be able to settle down as opposed to continuing to move his family. So that's more than fair. The Red Sox ended up falling short a little bit too, about $10 million in their offer to him for the 5 years. So that was obviously another factor, but the money thing wasn't as much of a factor. If the Red Sox offered the full no trade clause, he may have taken it because he did enjoy Boston and he did enjoy the future of what that team had going for them. So he ended up taking the Cubs deal. So because of that, the Red Sox ended up stuck, because I think they assumed that Alex Bregman was going to come back. I think they assumed that he was going to accept their offer and that they would have the infield covered. Because if they had Alex Bregman right now, they would feel like their infield is pretty set. And then that didn't happen. He didn't come back. He took the Cubs offer. So then the Red Sox were like, well, what do we do now? And then the Red Sox approach to improving the infield became, well, likely now at this point, we're going to have to acquire an infielder via trade as opposed to via free agency. So in order to do that, we might as well trade for a player who can make an impact both now and in the future. And they ended up doing that. They ended up making a trade for a young infielder, Caleb Durbin from the Brewers, who is a young stud, was 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting last season for the Brewers in his first year. And he's versatile. He's a guy who can play second base, third base, shortstop, wherever they kind of need him to play, which allows for more flexibility. He's young. He's 25, almost 26. So still a lot of time left in his career for him to be able to provide value. And ultimately, I think the Red Sox thought process became, well, if we have to make a trade anyway, this is a good move for us because this is for a player who can help out our team, hopefully, in 2026, and then can also make a difference for us down the line. Beyond that, he's still on his rookie contract, so he's still on the cheaper side. So this wasn't a big glamorous move, but they did make a move for a guy who they can hopefully have around for a while, who can make a difference for this team down the road and in 2026. So that was the big infield move that they now made. So now their infield likely is set, because they also, during all this, throughout the course of the offseason, traded for Willson Contreras, which is a notable move. Now, obviously, this doesn't fit the mold of let's trade for younger players who can help us down the road and now, because Willson Contreras is in his 30s as well, but he's at least a player who can provide some pop in the lineup, because the Red Sox don't have a power heavy right-handed hitter in the lineup. That was what they were seeking this offseason and they didn't get. And that's why I still have some concerns about the Red Sox offense going into this season and their ability to be able to score runs at a high rate. But Willson Contreras is a guy who has a really good fit for Fenway. His bat is really good because of the fact that he has really good bat speed and exit velocity, and he's really good at pulling fly balls in the air. So what that means is that when he hits the ball, it travels very fast, which elevates it and could make it travel further. So because of all of those skills that he has, a place like Fenway could allow him to really stretch fly balls into doubles or even homers. So I could see him being the quote-unquote home run guy to an extent that the Red Sox are looking for. Not to the volume of the home run heavy hitters in baseball. I don't think he's going to be, a 40, 50 home run guy or anything crazy like that. But if he hits 25 to 30 home runs and he's able to get himself on base, that would be good. This is a guy who has consistently been a good hitter the last few seasons. So consistency is key, and that's what the Red Sox look for. So at first base, he will be the everyday first baseman. The Red Sox are hoping to get a lot of value offensively from him. Then between second base and third base, it's going to be Caleb Durbin and Marcelo Mayer. Now, Meyer's frame is better for third base. Caleb Durbin is short. He's 5'7". So for him, he's probably better built for second base, whereas Marcelo is over 6 feet, so better for third. So to me, they should play Durbin at second and Marcelo Mayer at third, and then Trevor Story manning shortstop. That is what the infield to me should look like, because we knew Trevor Story was occupying shortstop already. And Marcelo, to me, from what I've seen of him, has looked a lot better defensively at third base than he has at second. And I actually spoke to him when he was in Worcester about playing second base versus third base, because this was when the Woo Sox were having him play multiple infield positions to kind of get acclimated to all of them. And I asked him from a comfortability standpoint what he likes. And he said he's really getting there with everything, but that he definitely feels more comfortable on that left side of the field because he's a natural shortstop originally. So if he had his choice, that's what he would prefer. But he said, I'm willing to do whatever the team needs me to do. And recently, a few days ago, he was talking to the media at spring training and said, I'm willing to do whatever the Red Sox need me to do. I can play second base. I can play third base, you name it. But from a comfortability standpoint, it's just because he's more used to playing on the left side. So it'll be interesting to see what the Red Sox decide, but I think Durbin at second and Mayer at third is what makes the most sense in terms of how to line up the infield. Now, the Red Sox are really banking a lot on their young talent to come through and deliver this season. They're expecting giant leaps from guys like Wilyer Abreu, Marcelo, who I mentioned, Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, even Jarren Duran, they're hoping has a bounce back offensive year from 2025, because we saw a really big offensive season from him in 2024, and that just didn't translate to last season. But he also provides a lot of versatility, so that's why the Red Sox want to hang on to him. And then Carlos Narvaez, young catcher who was a rookie last year too, they're relying on big strides from him, add him to the list going into this upcoming season. So there are lots of guys that the Red Sox are hoping really continue to develop here at a high level and really are able to maximize the roster as a whole, because if you get the young guys to make giant leaps forward, this can be a really good lineup if they're all performing at a much higher level. Also with Trevor Story, they're banking on him having a season like he had in 2025. I have some reservations about that because Trevor Story, for one, can't fully stay healthy. This past season was his first fully healthy season that he was with the Red Sox, so it's no coincidence that he had a really good year offensively because he was finally healthy, but it's hard to really bank on that because it's hard to, for one, bank on his health, and for two, hard to bank on him being able to play a full season and perform consistently at a high level, because we just haven't gotten that consistency from him over the rest of his time in Boston so far. So I'm really looking for him to be able to provide that level of consistency. But the Red Sox are assuming that he's going to be able to do that. They're also assuming that the young players are going to continue to develop at a high level. So because of all of that and taking all of that into consideration, it's hard to 100% feel fully confident in the Red Sox ability as a lineup to be able to score, because a lot of things kind of feel like they have to go right with the lineup in order for that to happen. Now, that being said, there are not just black and white ways when it comes to scoring runs. You can score runs in other ways. It's not just hitting home runs. Yes, hitting home runs is nice. You need to be able to do that in order to win baseball games too. But the Red Sox are very good at manufacturing runs. And what I mean by this is they play small ball. They can steal bases. Their goal is to make contact and move guys over, not just try to take that long ball approach every time of trying to hit a home run every at-bat and be a hero. Moving guys over and making good contact is a lot of what this Red Sox offense goes for. They like good contact hitters who are going to be able to put the ball in play, because good things happen when you just put the ball in play. And the Red Sox, the way they won a lot of their games this past season was due to that. And because the Red Sox have speed in their lineup and they have guys who can make contact, that's going to be the biggest key. To me, the issue last year wasn't necessarily the lack of home runs. To me, it was more the strikeouts. The Red Sox as a team struck out at a really high rate in 2025. And to me, that's a bigger issue because you can't just swing and miss so many at-bats throughout the course of the game, because then you're going to really squander away opportunities to score. So if their offense is able to have guys who can limit the strikeouts and can go out there and put the ball in play, that is going to work in the Red Sox favor moving forward. So am I fully confident in the offense? No. But do I think it's as bad as what people are saying it is? Also no. Both things can be true, to where this lineup significantly lacks power right now, and that can be a concern that you have. But it also can be true that this Red Sox team has good contact-based hitters, and they're going to try to focus on run prevention and eliminating strikeouts. Because another thing that they struggled with last year was infield defense. They led the league in errors in the infield last year. So the infield defense is just as important, especially because the Red Sox pitching rotation that I talked about earlier on in the show has several pitchers who are ground ball merchants, guys who are going to generate that soft contact to the infield. So they need guys who are going to be able to play good defense to man that infield behind those pitchers. So because of that, we're looking at a Red Sox team that now has guys who maybe have different strengths besides the home runs. Now, if the Red Sox were to go out and acquire one big power bat to add to this lineup, to me, that would really solidify this offseason for them. To me, that would say, all right, this has been a good offseason for the Boston Red Sox. We can go in and feel really confident with this team. And I still feel like it was a good offseason, but with something missing. If they were to go and acquire a power bat, I genuinely wouldn't feel like there's really anything missing, because that would feel more like a complete team. Now, I do have a little bit of a concern with the bullpen. I feel like they need more left-handed options there. They only have two lefties in the pen as of right now. Patrick Sandoval, a pitcher who a lot of people forget about, who the Red Sox have had all of last season. He just was hurt, so he wasn't able to pitch at all. He's a left-handed pitcher, and they could stick him in the bullpen, because with this battle for the fifth starting spot, he, I'm sure, will be in the mix to have a chance to compete for that spot. But because he missed all of 2025, the Red Sox may be better off putting him in the bullpen and having him pitch there, because if he can pitch multiple innings in the pen, that could be really beneficial for Boston, because they're then looking at a guy who is used to being a starter, is used to having the volume, can also pitch in relief. And rather than having to put the pressure on him to build him back up to being a starter, he could be built back up to the point where he can pitch 2 or 3 innings in relief. And then that'll help the Red Sox tremendously, because it'll give them another lefty relief option in the pen. And it will also be a guy who they feel can pitch more than 1 inning, especially on days where the starter doesn't provide that length that they need. They can bring him in to then be that guy who can come and pitch 2 or 3 innings out of the bullpen. So I like the idea of the possibility of him potentially playing in the bullpen instead of pitching in the rotation. So we'll have to see what they decide on that. But from an offensive standpoint, that to me is still the area of the roster that as of right now could hold them back if they do decide that this is what they're going with, if they don't make another move, which again, they could. Moves get made right before the season starts sometimes. Some of these moves happen late, so I'm not ruling out the possibility at all of something happening and them making another move. But as of right now, with where the roster stands, if they don't decide to make another move for a power bat, for example, and this is what they're going with in terms of their offense, I do think they lack a little bit of pop, but this is a team to me that's going to find other creative ways to win, even if it's not necessarily from home runs all the time. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. But overall, I'm excited about this season. I genuinely think this is a playoff team again, and that this Red Sox team has a lot of potential moving forward to be a team that competes. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays are still really good. They won the division and went to the World Series last year. So obviously, that's something to keep in mind too. The Yankees will be good again. The Orioles got better this offseason. So this is going to be a tough division again for the Red Sox to compete in. But overall, I'm feeling really good about their ability to compete at the highest level and to be able to make a playoff run and be a true contender. So we'll definitely have to see how things play out with that. But thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to both Boston Balling and Locked On Red Sox on any podcast platform. You can follow both shows on Twitter at LO_Red Sox and at Boston Balling. You can also follow me on Twitter at Gabby Maljanian and follow me on Instagram at Gabby_Maljanian10. So make sure you do all of those things in order to catch all of my Boston sports talk. I have some fun guests coming up here, including the on-field MC for the Patriots, who will be joining me for Monday's Patriots episode. So you won't want to miss that. So make sure you continue to subscribe, follow, like, and all that fun jazz. Let's go Red Sox. Let's go Boston sports, and I'll catch you next time.